Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you for coming. We are currently short of quorum, but we will have a new member attending shortly. Therefore, before getting the meeting started, just wanted to give everyone a heads up. We will be moving the approval of the minutes down to item 6, and we'll be going through the other items starting now. So thank you for coming, and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So let's start the roll call. I do have absences. Comments from Vice Chair Bree Rivera, Commissioner Gibbs, Commissioner Ana Ruiz, that they will not be able to attend this evening. So please, Mark.
What's your
Roll call.
name?
Roll call.
Oh, Margo, Rain,
And Cynthia Batty.
Matthew Lovely.
Kristen Zumar.
We also have City Planner Rogers with us as well. Thank you. So we will begin with opening the floor for public comment on the agenda items. Commissioner Rain will be doing the timing. As a reminder, please state your name, your address, and then there's also a sign in on there. Is that correct, Kathy?
You know what? I don't know if there's a sign in on
Okay.
that.
Oh,
No, there's not.
You can take one of these blank pieces. Here you go.
Sign in right there.
and there will be 3-minute opportunity to speak on any items on the agenda.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This meeting, I'll,
Oh, could you please get
Oh.
name and address? I'm sorry.
I
Thank you.
apologize,
Thank you.
it's new to me. Phil Gross, 1301 13th Street. Yeah, I'll keep it short, but I am going to poll petition the commissioners. I'll stick with the agenda items this month, but next month, there's gonna be a serious issue that's gonna need to be addressed, and I'm filing the paperwork with the city. So hopefully we can break ranks on that for next month. But this month, in regards to the comprehensive annual report, hopefully if there's any adjustments that the commission feels necessary, I hope you would include adding a referendum to put as a recommendation to hold up any new building projects until flooding issues and other issues are resolved, because right now on the drawing board, there's over 1,600 units approved throughout the city on 9th or South Street. And until the flooding gets resolved, the deaths or problems with people evacuating on the evacuation routes, it's an impossibility because they can't all track through the city. And I feel coming out of, Deemer's Landing or Washington, street there, it'll be a log jam if there's like a real emergency that springs on us, and not like the governor giving us 2 days, which should be ample time. So I beg the commission to please include that in your recommendations. And just beat out any issues coming up before they happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Okay, we'll close the public comment. Next item is we'd like to have a discussion of the comprehensive plan annual report. So we are tasked to provide an annual report on activities we've done relative to the comprehensive plan. Is that correct, Chris?
Yes.
In the past year. So I'm going to ask Chris to go ahead and guide us through this on discussion and any thoughts that we should consider.
Yeah, so the agenda item is entitled discussion of comprehensive plan annual report. And I think it's been that way for a couple agendas. But if you remember, the genesis of this discussion was to talk about what the planning commission can be doing proactively in anticipation of the budget season. And we started with looking at last year's annual report, which was submitted to state planning, which it's a part of the state code at the end of the fiscal year. And we use that as just an example of the planning commission. The annual report is more of a reflection of what a planning commission did in the previous year. And we just use that as an example of things that and items and issues that the planning commission recognized that they had done for you to take a look at, to give you some ideas of what you could be doing in the upcoming fiscal year, if you will, and have a meeting with the city administrator to talk about the budget needs for whatever you think is a priority for the commission. And then we talked about, chapter 14 is really the template, which is the implementation chapter of the comprehensive plan. And what chapter 14 does is just take all of the goals and objectives and recommended strategies from all of the other chapters in the plan on land use, transportation, community facilities, so on and so forth, and put them all into one chapter. So that we suggested taking a look at that chapter as some of the right items that you could be looking at to further the implementation of the comprehensive plan. You're not bound by those. You're there's certain boundaries on what the planning commission can do or can't do. But I don't think, for example, if it's not explicitly listed in chapter 14, that it's something that you can't consider.
Right.
But we would want to talk about it, so you have to have a good reason.
Can you give us an example of some things that we could influence as far as what could the planning commission request budget wise to do that maybe wouldn't have to be run past another commission? So I'm thinking, I know one of our meetings, we talked about tree plantings and things like that, but I know that has to go through planning commission, I'm sure city council, which is fine, but I'm just wondering what kind of things, where do we have an impact is what I'm trying to say.
You're gonna have to get money no matter what. So anything that you do that's gonna cost money, you're gonna have to get approval from city council.
Right.
So they have the purse strings. First and foremost is, are there any recommendations in the comprehensive plan dealing with the land use codes that need to be implemented? That's the primary implementation tools of any comprehensive plan are your zoning ordinance and your subdivision regulations, because they deal with the land use and they implement the recommendations of the comprehensive plan. I don't think that the latest comprehensive plan calls for any changes to the land use documents, to the zoning ordinance summary. So they're, but to give you an example, the previous plan recommended the DG zone or something that turned into the DG zone.
What's the DG?
I'm sorry, downtown gateway.
Oh.
The 2009 plan recognized the ferry cutoff area and South Street and made very made relatively specific recommendations about what could be done in those areas and define them geographically. And that 3 or 4 years later turned into the DG zone. That's the classic implementation pathway and tool of a comprehensive plan. This comprehensive plan takes a broad view, makes some general recommendations, and then you codify that in a zoning ordinance or subdivision regulations. And of course, the codification went through the public process. It all has to be vetted publicly with public hearings, and it took some time to get it right. So that's a classic example. I would say, look out for things that there's other agencies, other tasks, like there's a sea level rise task force. So they're charged obviously with looking at issues and policies that could, mitigate the impacts of increased flooding and sea level rise. Some of those recommendations have to be before you if they deal with comprehensive plan amendments or zoning amendments. So I would leave it, bring it back to you guys, about in the time that you've had here. What do you think?
I guess I want to rephrase my question. So it seems to me that we want to be proactive regarding budget considerations. So what kind of impact can we have where we would need to request more of a budget from city council, I guess is what I'm asking, because I know we have certain guidelines now for, obviously, for your services and for, as well as for educational opportunities for the team here. I'm just wondering what other kind of examples would we need to proactively approach council about to increase a budget? Does that make sense?
I mean, if you wanted to do something that necessitated the use of professional services that cost money, or
Okay.
surveys or anything that either be it, engineering or planning or some other special study that require the use of professional consultants, that would require that effort to be funded.
Okay.
I don't know, I haven't been involved in the budgetary process in the past with the planning commission and the administration, so. Our services regarding development proposals, I believe, are paid for by the developers. So that's not, taken out of the city coffers.
Right.
But if I had to do, something relative to not related to a development application, I think that would have to be a budget, come out of your budget, with the city's budget.
Right. Okay.
Can I
Yeah,
ask a
yeah,
question?
please, yeah.
So when was the last comprehensive plan done?
2020.
Okay, okay. And it doesn't need to be redone again till 2030, isn't that the law? Every 10 years you have to redo it?
Yes, but every 5 years you have to do a review of it to ensure that it's still relevant to your needs. You don't have to take any action on it, but you do have to do a 5-year review and report to the state as to its
Okay.
status. Every 10 years, you have to take some formal action. Even if you don't make a change, you have to sort of readapt it.
Okay, so we also need to prepare for what we're gonna do in 2 years, correct? So it would need to be submitted at the end of 2025.
Yes,
Fiscal
this-
year or
I think there's,
calendar year.
calendar year, because it was adopted in December of 2020.
Okay.
And I'm not suggesting that what we're talking about now has to, lead into that. I mean, it's not gonna take 3 years to do that 5-year review. And a lot can change between now and then that is going to make you,
Mhm.
you know, perhaps change your thoughts on the plan's relevance or not.
But who did the last one?
A consulting firm called KCI.
Because I would think we want a budget to make sure we can cover whatever expenses in 2025, and does that mean we might need to accrue some money each? I don't know, I'm just answering the questions again.
I think that, I'm guessing that the city's aware of that, so they would probably take that into consideration when the time comes. I'd like to maybe go off script a little bit here and ask, Commissioner Batty has put together some thoughts here, and I can't help but to notice that some of the things, I don't know if you're mentioning, Chris, as far as budgetary items would tie in with some of Commissioner Batty's thoughts here, and if you're prepared to
Sure,
talk
happy
about
to
it.
talk about it.
Yeah.
I think that the commissioners need to take a bit more proactive view of what our role is here. We've been pretty passive up until now, receiving information. I think since we got Matt as our chair, we have a lot more opportunity to have ideas and share ideas and think of different things to do, which I think we should. I've spoken to Mike Caranta as well, our mayor, and he talked a lot about his time on planning, which he spent several years on the planning commission, and he kind of inspired me too to think about what we could do that would actually have an active role in planning something, as opposed to just sort of sitting here and having presentations. And I'm very prepared personally. I think you guys have seen I'm willing to do research and other things. I might even retire this year. Don't tell anybody. But give me more time to do these kinds of things. I'm interested in doing it. And I jotted down a few things, especially inspired by the material that Matt put together and that Bree presented at the community meeting. About our town last week. There was a line in there. The planning commission is authorized and empowered to make studies and investigations of the resources and needs of the city. I don't think we've done that for years here. And we have the power to do a lot of things which are good for people. So I came up with a few ideas, and my thought is, and maybe it's a little late for this year. Maybe we just go hat in hand to the city council and say, budget us $50,000 and we'll find a good way to spend it. Trust us. But I know as a consultant that it doesn't take long to eat up $50,000. So that's not very much in relative terms. But I put 3 ideas down, which I'd be happy to explain for everybody here. The first one, I was very, very troubled when we had the public testimony around the Lucas Drive project, that people were talking about air quality issues. And I was aghast, to be honest with you. How is it possible in our city limits we have people struggling with air quality issues? That is an outrage. So point 1 is drive the city to investigate and resolve the air quality problems. In fact, that is supported in the comprehensive plan. We're told that's part of our job. So that I put as my number 1 thing that I thought we should do. How that happens, I don't know. As you all know, I'm very happy to tell you I don't know how to do something, so we can go find out how to do it. But that strikes me as a screaming emergency. Yeah.
So Chris, is that something that we would consider like a budgetary opportunity to get some kind of research on that, or I'm just trying to tie the two together.
Denrick may already have data on this. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. That seems a little bit out of the lane of the planning commission, but if there is information that you want regarding air quality, that's certainly something that you can ask for. I would be hesitant to right now recommend that you do your own study or you try to authorize our own study regarding air quality, because it's probably a Denrec representative that would be that could come
Come and
here
talk to us.
and give you an overview of the air quality regulatory program.
On page 122, it's made very clear that that's in the purview of the planning commission. I just want to make that clear, that that's within our purview. My idea here is not necessarily to figure out how to fund all these things. These are just my ideas, and you know, I know Margot has some thoughts as well, but and I'll go through my other thoughts, but I think we need a planning workshop where we can sit together and maybe announce or tell various people what we're thinking of doing, get some input, and then have a conversation about how we want to focus our attention. The second one has been one that's bothered me for a while, because I think it's certainly in the part of the city I live in, it's starting to create a quality of life issue, and that is the rental versus owner occupied properties. Anybody who's ever lived in a condo knows that once you get to a standard of rental versus owner occupied, you actually lose access to mortgage benefits and other things, because what happens, people don't care. Renters don't care. I understand that there are parts of the city where people have to rent because that's the state of their economic life. So what I'm thinking is we should look at our whole city by neighborhood area and understand what the rental versus ownership ratio is. And then with that knowledge, you know, when you get data creates patterns and pictures, and then you can figure out what you might do about it. But what could we do with that to drive happier neighborhoods? I don't know what that is, but I don't think you can know. Everyone will postulate, trust me. Mostly in my line of work, people talk without data, and it's very, very annoying. But once you have data, then you can get ideas, and you can put suppositions on the table and let people react to them and so forth. So I think doing a study like that would be very helpful to the city. And that is an open-ended study. That's not with an objective. The third thing that I thought of, and this is really not my idea, this is from St. Ron Bukolich, who I think you all know maybe is planting all the trees in the downtown area. And at one time, he is a lovely man, and he doesn't, you could put this in the record, he doesn't want to be acknowledged for what he's done, but I think everybody who's been the beneficiary of his tree planting, you know, just can't believe he has the energy to keep on doing it. He had an idea, and then he backed away from it, and I said, St. Ron, I'm going ahead with this. The idea was to have a program to plant all of Newcastle with trees, not just the historic district. And I think that that is something for which we could get grant money. There's lots of tree initiatives around the country, and there are a lot of serious stakeholders in Newcastle. For example, among some of the big business leaders in this state. So to put together an idea for a tree program. Now I understand tree program is not let's plant a tree. You have to plant the tree, and then you have to water it, and then you have to take care of it. And so it adds some burden to the community and the budget. But imagine if every tree in the city was lined by, or every street in the city was lined by trees. You know, what that would do for people's sense of well-being, not to mention oxygen and so forth. So I don't have any trouble coming up with a million more ideas, but what I wanted to do is put a few ideas out there and say, we have the opportunity to do these things. There's nothing stopping us. So why don't we do something instead of just sit here every week and, you know.
I think we've had to sit here every month because we've been.
We've been
Inundated with a lot of-
inundated, it is true,
a lot of
and I
plans,
feel
but
very
yeah.
proud of the work we've done as a group on all that, and I think we have the right mix of people to do some good projects, so. So Myra, you had some other thoughts.
So my thoughts are slightly different than yours. I was told shortly after I came on board, there was money for training, and the University of Delaware's Biden School has a program for training people on planning commissions throughout the state. And so I was able to take the class in January. Unfortunately, the one they had it, and Matt and I both took that. And then he was able to take the February one, but it conflicted with my teaching schedule, so I couldn't do that one. But I did catch up with the fellow who runs that program last week. And there are some more trainings coming up. But when I also told him, I thought we were gonna need to do something with the comprehensive plan, but I couldn't quite understand what we needed to do. He offered to come to our meeting and do a program just sort of explaining
Nice.
what a comprehensive plan is for free. So if we're okay with him doing that next month, I will let him know that. But other classes, and apparently if you take 3 classes, you can get a certificate. But there's a program coming up on May 12th for flood-ready communities. And that one's down in Dover. There's one on May 24th from the Land Use Administration. And Matt, that's the 3rd class to get the certificate.
May 24th.
And it is in person in Dover from 9 to noon. And then on the 26th of April, there's a Board of Adjustment training class, but we're not really a Board of Adjustment, but we can share that with people. But so just to have a better understanding of what we're supposed to be doing with the comprehensive plan part, I was really interested in hearing what Sean has to say towards your comments, Cynthia. It certainly made me think that they might be a place where we could go to get some data.
Yeah, I think the state would have a fair amount of data. No question. You had access to data when we did the other piece of research.
And depending on what data we find, if there's a lot of it, one of my coworkers is teaching a data analytics class where they have students get big bunches of data, scrub them, and then answer questions from them. So that might be another opportunity as well, which
Love to
You know.
get students to do the work. That'd be awesome.
as long as we can get the data for free, huh? You might have to buy them pizza or something, but beyond that,
Do that.
Right.
Yeah.
This is great. These are good things to talk about as far as proactive. As far as a time frame, when do we need to approach city council with these budgetary items? I know you said you haven't been involved with the budgetary in the past, but
We discussed this briefly at the last meeting. I think they've
July.
begun, they had a budget work session.
They have not scheduled one that I'm aware of. I think it would have been at that.
There was something about on the agenda regarding the budget.
maybe we're gonna wait till after the election.
They might,
I think it's possible. Yeah.
you know,
They
but
also
it-
only have 4 people on
Now.
council right now. Yeah.
yeah,
If you
know,
could
now
check
it's
with
time
the
to-
city administrator.
Can I piggyback on what Margot and Cynthia said? One thing. To have that gentleman come in and go over, the comp plan and everything with us would be great. I would just poll to make sure that that would be, if 1 month would be better than another, just to make sure that as many commissioners are here for that as possible.
Oh, good idea.
The other thing was a tree program. I was speaking to somebody who was working with the trees at the Wednesday night.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have his name out at him. But one of the like,
It's probably Carl Benson.
yeah, I think so. One of the things that I was discussing with him was just the fact that, they're going along the streets of Newcastle and replacing the trees and with, smaller trees and what have you. And out in Van Dyke, we have a plethora of the calorie pear. And they're causing issues with our sidewalks as well.
Yeah.
I had a friend triple a sidewalk and bust her knee up, and stuff like that. our calorie pairs are, we're within our, you know, not on the street. We don't have any on our street. And we're taking our last one down this year. But I think it would be good to offer, the city must have leverage in buying trees
Yes.
and to offer that discount on to the citizens to allow them to replace them with native trees.
Native trees that don't grow so big, they wreck everything too. Yeah.
Exactly.
Produce things.
He was-
Land on cars, make a mess.
Well, I want cherry trees, but they won't land on cars because they would be in my yard. They're nowhere near driveways. But I do, you know, he was talking about the different trees, how they're not planting all the same tree and they're planting ones that flower at different times and have different colors. So it sounds like the canopy that they're replacing is going to be more diverse than what we currently have.
It
And
makes it resistant to pests too.
and so I think having a program like that, even if we had something available to citizens who want to make changes in their own yard, or he said that it was possible that the trees that line the streets in Van Dyke, if they're causing issues, that the city may be able to take care of them.
So it
So,
costs a fortune to take a tree down. I think we all know that. And,
you know, we've taken 2 down ourselves. We've been lucky,
yeah.
but the last one we have to call somebody.
But this points up the connection to planning. Because if we had a list of trees that made sense for the place we live and the pests and the climate situation and the fact that almost everybody has sidewalks and then, you know, people could pick from the list, right? It would just make a whole lot more sense. So it could be a program that went in stages as well. To start out with, let's have a list, let's help get rid of the trees that are problematic. We don't have to design a program here, but what you're saying is very, and I think you and I talked about this there too, or I heard you talking to Carl. The tree committee, one of the many committees that we have here in town, has done a lot of homework on that. And you know, not everybody agrees with their choices. You always find somebody who has a different opinion, but you know, at a certain point, we have to trust that they're doing the right thing for our community and roll with it. So I think we have enough just here to say that's an initiative that makes sense for us to do.
Yeah.
And it can be in every community, you know.
Yes,
I think a lot of people think these things are just for the downtown area,
exactly.
but they'll come out, you know, to Boothurst and to Buttonwood and Van Dyke, where I am in Washington Park. I mean, everybody has trees and they say tree lined streets, you know, make happier neighborhoods
They do.
and kids and things like that.
Commissioner Lovely, I know it's not the public forum time, but I've attended all their meetings. And one thing, if I could interject, is Commissioner Batty's correct on they have come up with a list, but the biggest problem is everybody can request trees or they can plant trees, but they are maxed out because they have to water them for 2 to 3 years. And they're maxed out. If they do 50 a year, 30 a year, they can't possibly water them all. So if you could interject with part of your planning, if the city figures
I
out.
already covered that.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah, I appreciate that point. I think what we're all getting to here is if we set up like as part of the upcoming planning commission meetings, like a guest speaker series, tell us what you do, what can we do to help? And for something like that, as you mentioned, that could be something that we could budget in if that's a challenge for people regarding the tree maintenance. I mean, that's something we could add as a commission, but if we can approach the speakers as, you know, not only what do you do, you know, but how can we partner with you? I think that'd be a great opportunity, not just for the commission, but also for the public to come and to listen and to find out more about that as well. So I'm going to charge the 3 of you with some assignments, if that's all right, if that's okay.
sure, I just want to say that, I'm a person of action. I don't want to wait for 100 meetings from now to hear from the tree commission. I'd like to see us do this as a workshop type program where we set aside some time and maybe we have 3 topics and we invite 3 people to come in and we talk to them and we say, okay, of these three, we're gonna pick one, or we have 5 people and we're gonna pick 2. I don't know. Let's do something.
You know,
As opposed to just talk about it. That would really be fantastic.
that's an even better idea. Rather than make it an agenda item. If we have it as a workshop,
Yeah.
as you're saying,
So the
we
separate
could,
meeting?
right,
It could be a separate meeting, or it could be a regular, on a regular day.
basically, what
because-
it would be like a
Right
workshop
now, we don't have a
sponsored
lot coming
by,
to us.
initiated by, sponsored by the planning commission. And open to the public, of course, and yeah, we could all get some information, that way. You're not locked into coming, if you don't have to, for example, but I think it would just be good to get some information from some people, so. Workshop series, yeah, I'm gonna,
Something that occurs to me about, your expert, so it'd be great if you came and talked about the comprehensive plan. But Chris has already educated us quite significantly about what this thing is. I want to know how to apply it. So if he can come in and talk about how it gets applied, how other cities apply it, what kind of creative things has he seen people do? You know, let's get beyond the, oh my God, it has stormwater rise information. I don't need to hear that anymore. What I need to hear is, this is a tool. It actually has a lot of stuff in it that enables us to do things, but we're not even touching a tiny piece of it.
Yep.
So let's hear how to think about this tool to bring about a better environment for our city.
and
You're
based
ahead
on,
of me.
I was gonna say,
Okay.
based on the classes that I took, he has the capacity to do that, exactly what you're saying, because he deals with all of the whole states.
Yeah, he might have some really good ideas.
Like case studies or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, so we get that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sean O'Neill.
Sean O'Neill, yeah. And Max was involved with the one, well, he was Max Walton was here, he previous to me, and he actually was involved with classes as well. So he might be part of the commentary as well.
and I think, Chris, you should be here for those because you have experience as well. And, you know, we don't want to,
Especially with us.
I know, this lucky that we are, but, if, you know, if something is not right for our place for some reason, you know, when we get all excited and jump around, you know, can tell us that we're nuts, but I just think that's how I like to use consultants is to show us the possible. That explained to me one more time the Bible. I've actually read the Bible too, and I don't need anybody to explain to me anymore. So, but you know, how do we apply that to make Newcastle a better place? That's what I'm interested in.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for this. There's a lot of energy around this. I appreciate that. Regarding, so I wrote down speakers. Margaret, I'd like to just get back to Sean telling me this meeting or the next meeting. I would like to be in attendance, which I will not be at the next meeting. So
Okay.
maybe the May meeting, if you could just find out, because you
Okay.
kind of
I
work
can
with
do that.
right? Okay. Kristen, do you want to get back in touch with the gentleman from the tree commission and just tell him we'd like to, partner in a workshop of some sort and, see how he feels about that. Let's get it and just find out.
One other thing.
Yeah.
Since we don't have any representation in the sea level rise committee, a lot of issues with runoff and things can be solved with planting vegetation, what have you, and so in partnership with that, I think we should look at where we can plant some more native vegetation as well. And ask for initiative on that. I know that there is some property over by the gentleman who has the bees.
Yeah.
Tomlin. And I know that they are working to change that area where they planted non-native species that and not, no bees, no food, no people type of thing. So I'd also like to, in addition to the native trees, bring in something where we can try to mitigate any flooding with any native plantings. To be down at the beach, they plant on the dunes with the dune grass and they have a yearly thing of it. And so I don't know if there's anything that we can do to help. So I don't know if that task force would have any information that
The
of
trustees
studies.
do too. The trustees, you may have heard that night, have taken several of the meadows back to wild.
Yeah, that was one of the ones that got incorrectly planted, apparently.
So they had to fix it.
Yeah, they have to go back, they had to take everything out, but then it's when they planted the sunflowers, just as to have something there, but my understanding is this year it should be something different.
But see, this is an example of the left hand and the right hand in Newcastle. Not, there's, we have a book of standards here and we haven't got any standards for planting.
But that's the thing, so in conjunction with trees, vegetation, that helps, with runoff, it also, helps purify the water. It also mitigates any type of erosion. That I don't know what type of erosion we have along our coastal area with our homes there. But those types of things and bringing the citizens in to have this information also as to, I know last summer at the library, they had classes on things like planting native, but during the middle of summer, everybody's planted what they're planting at that point. So to do that proactively, I know Mount Cuba had come into the library, but I know that we've had, I believe, the trustees used Red Wing over at the Hermitage as a consultant. Somebody came in from there to assist them with things they could do.
Well, the extension service also.
Yeah, the master gardeners have come to the Aristophane, with Aristophane, it's had them in for May market, and they've given some great information, and the May market's doing all a plethora of native plantings available for sale.
Yeah, cool.
So I just think that some of the things that are offered, not through us necessarily, but through the library, come too late in the season. I look at Mount Cuba's classes and they've already had things, in January for spring.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you wanna do this January.
And pest control things and native plants that help control pests, and so that, we can mitigate or limit our use of pesticides type of thing.
Carl works at Mount Cuba. I can text you his information, but I don't have your phone number in my phone, so if
I'll
you
get
get
it for you.
your mobile number down, I'll text it to you now. So I think he'd love to get more involved. Carl Benson. Tree Commission, yeah. On the Stormwater Rise Committee, we could ask one of them to come to our meetings, every other meeting, and present to us where they are. That, I think that would be a good way to do it. Don't they have a professional consultant working with them too?
Yeah, it's us.
Oh, it's you. Is it you?
Well, it's a story.
It's a
It
story.
was a colleague, and unfortunately, he passed away.
Oh, the
Oh,
engineer.
it's David Apey.
Yeah, rather.
So that's terrible.
So,
Didn't they just name a new person to replace David? I think I heard. No? Oh, if your company's like mine, they never tell you anyway, but
No,
I thought I heard somebody else was named. Okay,
You would know.
okay.
So, we were in the, I worked with Dave a little bit on it, but I've had to get involved with it much more now. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot going on with the Sea Level Rise Task Force. We're in the middle of gathering the data that was the key to them making some recommendations and taking some next steps. There's another study that the Natural Resource Conservation Service may be doing for them or for the city. So right now, things are kind of in limbo with Dave's passing and the onset of this new study, but we should be prepared to make a presentation to them for their next meeting. This month's meeting was canceled. Probably saw that on the website because there wasn't, they're waiting for some data. So, yes, you should be informed of what's going on with the Sea Level Rise Task Force, because especially to the extent that it's going to impact land use.
Yeah.
Do you think
Maybe we wanna take the.
mitigating, coming up with ideas to mitigate the flooding is in our purview, as well as in conjunction with them? Like to reinforce, like,
No, I mean, their primary they were created by the city council, so I think it would start with recommendations coming out of that task force. And if the recommendations if the recommendations fall within issues that are within your purview, then they're going to be in front of you as part of the natural process of implementing them. If it's, spending more money to raise the dikes versus flood-proofing structures, then probably not, because that's a budgetary
Yeah.
policy, capital improvement. You should have some say capital projects, but
So it'd be more or less for us to kind of support their projects, I guess, in our
Well,
purview.
like read their minutes, maybe, I
Well, I
mean,
mean,
they should be publishing this stuff in a way that we can see it. One of the things I'm thinking, Kristen, is that we should get a copy in our package, just a digital copy of their minutes every month, so we can read it in preparation for our meetings.
I think
That was it.
everything is on.
Was it?
everything's online.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah.
I know, but
To have to remember where to go for everything.
yeah, I'm saying we need some kind of package up for ourselves, it's. Cause I think most of us still work, it's just, this is not our full-time job, so it would be easy to say to Kim, for example. Can you just throw one of these into the package every month or whatever,
Yeah.
just make it a little bit easier for us. We are executives in this role, we're not, line workers, so we should get a little bit of TLC.
Chris, would it be realistic to ask someone from the C-level task force to join us for the June meeting to give us an update? Or would that be too soon?
June,
Yeah,
I would defer to. I think there's a lot to be done between. Because I'm looking at, there's some grant funding deadlines. It looks like the task force was only supposed to be in effect until April 30th, 2023, unless extended by city council.
oh,
So the city level task force is looking towards us and NRCS right now.
Okay.
To put some data together and make some recommendations on next steps, so. Okay, I would. I'm sure that somebody would be happy to come talk to you, but they're gonna say, we don't have anything to talk to you about yet, except tell you about the status of everything. And right,
Well, that's okay too.
yeah, so the status is,
They're about to expire.
no, the city did, got grants and they did, different types of studies. There are the floodplain, I'm just gonna give you a quick 2 minutes. There's the floodplain maps that everybody knows about, and they dictate where the 100-year storm will inundate the land. And the maps are based on elevations of 8, 9, and 10 or 11. So there's different 100-year floodplain elevations. But it's not clear as to whether if a structure or more particularly a dwelling is in the geography of a 100-year floodplain boundary. We don't know, they didn't know whether the first floor was elevated above the 100-year floodplain, which would make it technically out of the floodplain for the purposes of FEMA regulations and insurance. So there was a study done where a surveyor went out and surveyed 620 structures in the floodplain to determine the first floor elevations, FFE. So we have data on 625 structures to determine whether they're actually below, the first floor is below or above the floodplain. Secondly, there's another consultant that was hired under another grant to look at whether the structures could actually be flood-proofed. So they looked at very specific characteristics of a structure. Did it have windows? Does it look like it have a basement? If they were able to get inside with the property owner's permission, they entered the structure and they took down information regarding whether it had a crawl space or a basement. I'm in the middle of, I have a call tomorrow with that consultant to try to finalize that deliverable. And it's, those two sets of data were going to be put together to determine whether or not there was enough information to run some sort of model to determine, as I understand it, what would be the impacts of raising the dikes versus other floodplain, other flood mitigation options. Because the dikes were raised, and shortly after the dikes were raised, the floodplain elevation changed. So the dikes became obsolete soon after they were raised. Based on information I read. So, and then secondly, another entity came forward, NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service. That's sort of the umbrella federal organization that runs the soil conservation districts. You guys might be more, that name may be more familiar to you. They're doing a study to determine if the city is eligible for capital funding for flood prevention. So that may make the previous studies conclusions or less relevant.
Right.
If this NRCS study determines that the city is eligible because of the criteria that they have, is eligible for real capital dollars associated with flood proofing or flood prevention. That's how I understand it. And
When is that due?
that's all I want to say, because it's taken me a couple months to get up to speed since and we're still having to find files and and we have other flood experts that we've brought in from the econ that are familiar with technically what Dave was doing. So we have to present the results of the first two studies that I talked about to the Sea Level Rise Task Force, hopefully next month.
With everything going on, have you heard anything about this task force being extended?
No,
I'm assuming that's something that would happen through.
I'm just
Council?
read it tonight. I've been on the.
I knew it was expiring. I think I read that after our last meeting. I was in there. I'm just wondering if it's something that
It was extended to October.
October.
And
Thank you. I
there was a
appreciate
FEMA grant, Delaware Emergency Management Agencies. That a lot of the funding for these studies came from grant from FEMA. And they had a deadline, and those were extended given the circumstances. The city's been upfront with what's happening, and the NRCS coming in relatively. I don't know if they were part of the process, but the NRCS study is also sort of delaying things because we don't know what they're going to find and how the other study that I mentioned will fit into what their conclusions come up with.
Is the scope of this the city of Newcastle or Newcastle County, or what is the scope of this work of the sea level task force? So I could imagine the next city down the block would have their own studies and would want to compete for money and.
It's certainly within the bounds of the city. It was established for the purpose of researching available information concerning the impacts of sea level rise on the city of Newcastle and making recommendations to the city council toward the furtherance of those goals and strategies. One thing, and this is all great, and I don't want to sound like a naysayer, but you guys haven't had a full site plan yet. So the meat of your charge is for better or worse, dealing with land use and land development. And we haven't had a site plan to you guys yet. So you haven't delved into the zoning
We
ordinance.
haven't had any fun yet? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so you're gonna find challenges
Stick to our knitting, you think?
I'm just saying, and a lot of times, I'm gonna review the plans and and write letters and reference sections, and you're gonna say, that doesn't make it, how come the zoning ordinance says that? I'm gonna say, well, because it's been that way and there hasn't been an update for, there's been piecemeal updates to the zoning ordinance for years and years. So you may find other things as you get into, your rhythm of the land development projects. There's the special exception that you made a recommendation on in December is in front of the Board of Adjustment Thursday. Don't know what's gonna happen with ordinance 536. Yes, I mean, technically, historically, you haven't been inundated with developments, but there may be a couple big developments coming back to the table. And we're gonna have to deal with trying to understand the zoning ordinance, which I do, but right, you may find other things that get your attention once you get into a land development project.
That may make the case then to go back to the workshop idea as opposed to meeting items, right? Once we get into the.
It depends. I mean, yeah, we know, well, if it's a workshop where you're inviting somebody and then they need to schedule that. And then you get two land development projects on the same agenda, you probably wouldn't want to do that, so.
Right.
You may want to try to keep them separate.
That's what I'm saying, be a separate from the meeting, right, the workshops, yeah. But I think that would be, I think the community would appreciate the workshops, I would hope, I would think. Maybe
Hope
not,
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to try to help provide some more clarity, some more interest in some of the things that are going on in the city and what can be going on, how we can make a difference. I think that'd be great.
There's one other thing that had been on my mind since Newcastle Hardware went out of business, the Ace Hardware, which was a real loss for the whole community. Somebody's charting up that building now, and I have no idea what's going to go in there.
Looks like another apartment.
On Route 9,
Yeah,
it's a Family Dollar.
Oh,
just what we
no.
don't need here. Now we
Bummer.
can-
I was hoping it was gonna be a
Yeah.
Hooters.
So what I was thinking was, these businesses coming in have an impact on how we plan for the community, and I personally have no visibility other than to drive by, and the loss of the hardware store replaced by a Family Dollar is a travesty for that neighborhood, for all of us. It's bad. And if we were alert, if everybody was alert here, maybe we could have stopped that from happening.
No, that's not in our-
It's not in our city.
I mean, the city could do something about it.
It's not within the city limits.
Oh, is
Oh,
it?
I didn't know that.
I don't think so, no.
I don't
it's
think
part-
it is either.
Right up by Collins Park on Route 9, across from Rite Aid and CVS.
I know, like the downtown Bloomington, the Market Street corridor a number of years ago had a study done saying what businesses do we need in here?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what
That's
you're
kind of-
alluding
well,
to?
It's what's happening, because I don't know what's happening. I'm not suggesting we do illegal things. I don't know what legal things are for this. I still don't really have any idea. But if we're a planning commission and we're trying to make it a better place for everybody, maybe knowing what's happening would help us to make better plans. So my thought was, how do we get information about which new businesses are coming in and where they're going to be located and, ones that are dying and leaving?
Well, that was the one big detriment is Pathmark and Super Fresh both left. And while there is a grocery store there, to get other certain things, you have to still go venture up to ShopRite
Yeah.
or down to Giant. And
Yeah.
I know my understanding was over where the Pathmark was, Acme wanted to come in there and they would not assist them in the upgrades needed to,
Yeah, I believe it's trustee property though.
yeah, it is, but I mean, it is within the city, but they did try to, there were interested parties and.
I don't think we have, say, on businesses per se, so much as we have the land use itself.
I don't disagree with that, but I think we need to have some visibility to it.
Yeah,
It's part of the holistic problem of Newcastle. When we first moved here, excuse my tiny little story, we moved here 7 years ago and we're like, we need some food. So we get in the car, we look on the Google Maps, what's the closest place? We drove to 4 different locations that claimed that they were food stores and they were closed. And I thought, what kind of a mistake have we made? That was really my thought. And I realize that's not part of the purview of planning commission per se, but if we don't have any visibility to the things that are happening around us, how do we think about things? I mean, you know, somebody can shoot me down, but I just don't get it otherwise. And that place, by the way, has been taken over by the Indian grocery.
Part of it, the other part of it, the gym.
Yeah, and I've heard it's quite a nice store. Yeah. So, so that's nice too.
Is there any purview to do any type of study on, like she said, the businesses that would
Be
be
good.
good for our area? I mean, is that something within our realm of influence at all?
It may be,
Or it might just be if we had land that we do needed to be developed at that point.
you know, you're a small urban area, you know, in the middle of a larger, you know, corridor. I was thinking about, you know, going to the state economic development folks and seeing what kind of studies they have or data they have regarding businesses. So, you know, I know a lot of planning commissions get frustrated, you know, being put in a reactionary mode because you feel like you're in a reactionary mode all the time because you're getting applications and, you know, deriving. You can have say where businesses are permitted through the comprehensive plan and through the zoning that comes with it. But as far as other economic development incentives,
There's no way to encourage it.
well, there's the DDD program that I don't know if anybody knows.
The Delaware Prosperity Partnership?
No,
downtown Delaware.
Oh, the
Down-
Main Street.
Main Street program, yeah,
The Main
which
Street
we
program.
did receive funds for that, and I think there are a lot of small businesses received some incentives for that, but that's just the Main Street, that's not.
no, there's the downtown development.
Yeah.
District.
Yeah.
It's not, it's 86 acres. So it was created back in,
It's called 86 acres?
no,
No, that's.
That's how much land there is.
But they've given grants to a lot of the small businesses in the historic district. But again, that doesn't, you know, I'm thinking, wouldn't it be great if there was an urgent care facility that was out closer to the Buttonwood area or places where people might want to walk to services rather than have to get in the car and drive. to
Or it'd be
services.
easier just to take the bus there versus taking
Exactly.
3 into Wilmington.
Yeah.
you know, we could talk for hours about this. I mean, there are things like getting an urgent care facility to locate in a certain spot is beyond your purview and beyond your control. But
Understand.
things like what Sean will say, you can adopt
A list of
Could-
preferred?
complete streets ordinances where, and we probably already have that, where you make it easy for people to walk to things they need to get to. And, you know, you approve developments and you make them put in sidewalks, you make them repair sidewalks if we can do that. So you can do things that can encourage certain things, but only to a certain point and like incentivizing certain businesses or you can do that through zoning for sure. But zoning is fairly broad and there's probably nothing preventing what you just suggested in the zoning ordinance.
No, I agree.
I don't know.
Somebody's gotta have a vision, you know, if there's no, where there is no vision, the people perish, it says in the good book. So, you know, if we don't set a vision here of some kind. You know, Newcastle has more disconnected visions than I thought was possible in one tiny little place when I first moved here.
I think kind of what you're saying is. If we advertise we need these things, maybe these people will come to us because. You know, to say, we really do, we need another grocery store. You know, we definitely need an urgent care type facility. There was a doctor's office. Is it a phoresis now on Ferry Road Cutoff? That used to be a doctor's office. We don't have that any longer. And there used to be doctors within the community that people could go to. I remember going to see Dr. Bacon and things like that when I was little. So we don't have any of that, but if we can say we're looking for that, there's people that are looking for places to go with
Yeah.
those facilities.
Well,
So I don't know if we would have any role in that at all.
Our mayor is the president of the Delaware Chamber of Commerce. Do you want to find a waterfall of money, ideas, and influential people? That would be the place, right? And we as a city have not taken advantage of that, in my opinion. And the one chance I thought I would do something, I got so frustrated by the individual who got in the way that I backed away from it. But you want to talk about available grant money? Two of the people, I'm not going to give you the details because he would kill me. But two of the people that sit on his board came from Newcastle, are stakeholders in Newcastle, and have funding to give to people like our tree commission to plant trees all over the city. If you have a vision, it's actually not hard to get the money. It's just somebody's got to set a vision,
But
right?
we have to tie it to what our purview is, that's. the
Of
thing.
course, well, we would have to get city council to agree and, you know. Where there's a will, there's a way though, but somebody's got to come up with something. You know, I put a few ideas on the table here. And I'm very used to being told half my ideas can't possibly happen because, you know, the moon is not made of blue cheese. But I still want to believe that something's possible. Because otherwise I'm wasting my time to sit here tonight. I could be sitting home having a glass of wine and talking to my husband and petting my cat, you know, or your dog. So, you know, it's gotta be worth it, folks. Whereas we're sitting here, what are we doing? Let's do something already.
Well, I think the site things that we're gonna be looking at will be.
Yeah.
part-
We'll have plenty of work to do.
Yeah, we'll.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't wanna downplay our role.
And
but
I don't want to say
hear
we
you.
didn't do work. We
Yeah.
spent 10 months looking at Lincoln's Drive. And it was grueling and we met with an incredible amount of opposition, which was personal and painful. And I think at the end, it came to be found that the community wanted it and we thought it was a good idea. So, you know, at least we came to an outcome, right? Not to everybody's liking, no doubt, but.
Matt, when are you looking to hold workshops with people like from the tree commission?
Well, I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna send out a note to all the other commissioners and just get a sense of availabilities. So check with Carl first. Carl, what's his last name again? I'm sorry. That's okay. Yeah, he did the presentation. So, yeah, check with him first and see if he's open to that.
Oh, he'd love to come.
Yeah, I'm sure it would. I just want to make sure, but we set up like a workshop of sorts.
How far in advance will we know if we're gonna get details in regards to the site plan, like for the Lucas Drive when that
Oh,
comes
for the
back?
next meeting?
Yeah,
You won't. If that gets approved, you won't see something for months.
so we will have time to hold these workshops and other, unless other applications come before us. I guess that's in planning things, we obviously want to make sure that we prioritize anything that comes to us for review in
Yeah, you're gonna
regards
have
to the comprehensive plan.
So we've had two other items that have come to us. The apartment buildings on Route 9, right, that's 7th Street. Have we heard anything back from them?
They're in front of they're going to the Board of Adjustment on Thursday.
Okay, and then also the Gateway project, is that also going to the Board of Adjustment?
It's the same project.
Now, on the one on Route 9 near the Garrison next to the liquor store,
Oh,
Yeah,
that one's really kind of falling on the
yeah,
radar.
they are, you should be,
They want more apartments.
No, yeah,
that was approved
okay,
by the Board of Adjustment in December.
okay, so we'll be hearing from them shortly, I would think. Maybe not,
We have no control over when they submit stuff. but,
Okay.
Everybody's always in a hurry, developers are always in a hurry, so I would expect
In the next month or two.
Next couple months.
okay,
So maybe if we're gonna schedule a workshop in advance, it should not be on a meeting night.
right, yeah, that was the discussion we had earlier, so it's, yeah.
So you want me to ask Sean, maybe other nights he might be available as opposed to?
No, I think Sean would be good
For the main
for the
meeting?
May meeting, and
Okay.
I'll, emphasize to the other commissioners to, try and make it a priority to be here, so that, because it's educational as well as, discussion, so I think that'd be good for all of us. Are you able to make the May meeting, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, great, okay, that's wonderful. As far as the workshop for the tree commission.
What, who else would we want there? Cause we were thinking maybe.
I wasn't gonna ask the Sea Rise to join us, but I don't know if they're in a position to give us any
It
additional.
doesn't sound like
to
it.
really kind of do that.
Not for, I wouldn't say
Yeah.
in May.
Yeah,
And they,
Maybe
they should,
I mean, is there anyone else we wanna to collaborate with?
let me ask you, how odd would it be if we brought Arisafa in to talk to us? I mean, they don't really have an authority, but I mean,
They
they're
beautify
involved
the
in
city.
beautifying, right. I don't know if that would be a tie-in. Just kind of make the thoughts on
I think
that.
it'd be worth asking them questions too about
Yeah.
how do they coordinate
Yeah,
with other things that are going on in the city too, because,
yeah,
if in a subtle way we could help create a little bit more.
Well, they might also be able to do something in regards to offering. Native plants at a discount type of thing, as you know, bulk orders get bigger discounts. At my store, if you can order 50 cases of something, you're getting a bigger discount. So I don't know if that's, some type of thing. I know they pot all those plants with around the city and things like that, beautifying the city, and don't they plant around the entrances to the city as well, where the new signs are for the most part.
yeah, well, that's.
And then they put together the wreaths at Christmas.
Right, that's we find out more about that, see how the two tie in. And ideally to make it a win-win for everybody, and I know we're getting way off planning commission things here. But I think ideally it'd be great if we could have them have the workshop prior to May Market. That'd be a good promo, kind of win-win there.
Arisafa might be busy though, because they, when is May Market the first?
I think it's the second weekend.
Yeah.
Second Friday.
We're working there.
I thought it was the 5th and the 6th.
We'll double check. Okay, well, either way, we're getting,
I mean, I don't, I would caution you against, I guess, getting involved in things where the entity reports directly to city council. Like the Sea Level Rise Task Force, not that you're gonna direct them but their first charge is to report to the city council. So they have a lot on their plate and they gotta get their stuff wrapped up. And get a report to the city council.
Yeah.
And then city council will decide, what to do with it. I don't think anybody has a problem with letting you know what's going on with it, but
right,
they're not charged with coming to the planning commission and making a report and then going to city council, but that's all.
Yeah.
And there's, also,
yeah, we would, I don't think we would ask them to do anything, we just Want to find out.
Informational.
Yeah, yeah. And again, that would be good for the city as well, or for people as well. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're going to set out to the other commissioners some possible workshop dates.
Are we giving up on anybody else?
Yeah, it's been over an hour. I
Yeah.
think,
I've given up,
so,
so I may leave
So-
before she gets here.
so we are going to table the approval of last month's minutes.
If you want some
The next
help
one.
putting this stuff together, let me know.
Yeah.
I'm happy to-
I just did a quick search on Google. There's a Delaware Department of Agriculture. So
Yeah.
I don't know who that is. Someone from there might be able to come out and talk. to that as well.
The co-op at University of Delaware, they've had a lot of master gardeners. They coordinate with Aristotle, I think.
Yeah, I think that would be the place to go.
There's
Ag Day's coming up too in April, so they're probably gonna be very busy.
there is a list of trees also available, not available. City of Newcastle recommended tree list.
Yeah, the tree commission put that together.
Was that on
Yeah,
the
he
website?
told me that on Wednesday.
Yeah.
That Wednesday night session was very helpful. I wish I would have been able to attend more of them.
Yeah, I wish I could have gone too.
Delaware Department of Agriculture, is that?
I think improving the city website, which is not in our purview at all, but it would really help.
I know, I do have to,
Last searching.
because I watched the council meetings
Yeah,
after the fact, so
you are a glutton for punishment, woman.
I'm not running for anything though.
That's
So-
because you're a smart woman.
That G bypassed me,
Okay, so let's wrap up some things here.
Tell me that.
so we're gonna just hold the meeting minute until next.
Yeah, we're gonna run through the meeting minutes.
We can do anything else.
Right, we can't vote on it. So,
We can't do anything else.
So, making note of that, so we'll be approving 2 sets of minutes. And good luck with this week's minutes, Kathy, this month's minutes. We've had a good hearty conversation, and I really appreciate that. Before we wrap things up here, and Chris, thank you for your input. Thanks so much. Absolutely. Before we wrap things up, I'd like to ask for comments from the commissioners, anything additional? It's been great. I appreciate the energy around these items, and I think we'll be serving the community well if we do these things. So I will not be at the April meeting. Vice Chair Bree Rivera will be running it. So Chris, I will help out as far as coordinating agenda with you as well. So we'll do that. And I just want, on that note, Commissioner Batty alluded to it earlier about the presentation at the you and your city, and she gave me a little bit more credit than I should have received. She actually put the original slides together, and I just kind of doctored them a little bit with some information, and then I was unable to make the presentation, so she and
We made
Commissioner
Bree do it.
Rivera.
Bree did it.
You did as well, so you did a great job. I was very proud to be part of the commission after that presentation. And it's a good event for the city as well to learn more about that, learn about all the commissions, not just ours. But I believe that was the first time that the planning commission participated in that event. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Anything further? And I saw you were there, so great job.
Got blackmailed with that one by Bree.
Oh, you did? Great.
Give
Whatever
up
works.
at work.
Whatever works, yeah. All right. Anything else? Margaret, thank you for reaching out to Sean. That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. So, thank you very much. Could I have a motion to adjourn? Wait a minute, can we even vote on adjournment? No, I'm just kidding.
I motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Bye.
Aye. Adjourn. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you.
Good meeting.
We're not gonna be able to do this all the time, but yeah. that was good.